Hey guys. Oh boy, it's good to be back. Still working through the year-end, year beginning madness, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Starting to get my wits back. Um, so how are you guys doing? Everything okay? I'd like to welcome any new subscribers. We are inching towards the eventual, hopefully, 500 subscriber mark. If we reach it, of course, I'll put out something special for that. I am gearing up to get rid of a bunch of my books. This weekend there's a used book fair, and I'm gonna have a booth there and try to get rid of a lot of stuff, including English, French, Japanese stuff, movie paraphernalia, and comics, etc. So kind of gearing up for that. But I've been trying to make this video for a couple days, and just, you know how it is, things just keep popping up. And today, though, we're talking about thesis number 6, which is the fear of the monster is really a kind of desire. So this is an interesting one. I have so many quotes. So I'm just going to jump in, okay, and get to the quotes. But so these are some quotes from the thesis itself. The monstrous lurks somewhere in that ambiguous primal space between fear and attraction, close to the heart of what Kristeva calls abjection. So this is an important point. Julia Kristeva is a interesting philosopher and theorist who talked about objection. When we read like academic papers about the monstrous feminine and anything horror with a kind of a feminist slant, or taking a look at it through a feminist lens, we're going to get to abjection, because Julia Kristeva and Judith Butler and Barbara Creed, like, these are some of the giants upon which a lot of monster theory is built upon. Jack Halberstam and Noel Carroll are some other names of some theorists that basically Cohen didn't create everything from scratch. He was working with ideas that came out before and around the same time that he was putting the essay, the 7 Theses, together. So objection's an interesting idea. It's this fragment of yourself that basically, by rejecting it, you're defining yourself. You're defining your boundaries. You're like, I'm not that. And you're defining about what you find acceptable. So the abject is something, it's so horrible, it's so disgusting, you just want to get it as far away from you as possible. But because it's you that's deciding that it's horrible and disgusting and everything, and it's often a part of you, like feces or menstruation or some bodily thing is often something that's tied to the abjected. It's something that, even though you push it away, it's still attached to you because of your feelings toward it, or because it originated from you. So it's the thing that you can't quite 100% get rid of. So there is still it still has a magnetism, it still has a gravity that attracts you to it. So and this, I think, echoes a lot of ideas about, we like things that are bad for us, that are dangerous, that are scary. We like riding the roller coaster. We like watching the scary movie, often for that reason, that we want to kind of breach the unknown, kind of shoot ourselves out of the daily, status, quo, world, and into a different situation. So Cohen goes on to say, the objected fragment that enables the formation of all kinds of identities, personal, national, cultural, economic, sexual, psychological, universal, in particular. So yeah, so basically it's when you reject something, you're saying that is not me, so that's not me, so this is me. And let's continue with the quotes. The monster of objection resides in a place that is doubly dangerous, simultaneously exorbitant, and quite close. So it's so different, so crazily different, but at the same time, because it's something that you personally have created in your mind, that it's also still a part of you, still close. So Judith Butler calls this place that we're talking about, this locus of where the monster is focused, a domain of unlivability and unintelligibility that I don't even know what that means. Bowels? Oh, bounds. My handwriting's horrible. Bounds the domain of intelligible effects. What that is saying is that by having a border, which we talked about before, right? By having a border, by having a line, a demarcation between this is something we can understand, and outside is all this chaos, all this crazy stuff that we don't understand. That's where the monster lives, is in that. And I recently started reading Chainsaw Man, and I have to say a lot of monster theory is echoing in there. It's really fascinating stuff. I'm going to have to give it a couple more reads to seriously do any kind of interesting talk about it, because I just think that it's very dense. There's some things that seem simple on the surface, but I think it's quite dense. But I'd love to talk about it. But I need to read it a couple more times before I feel confident talking about it. So okay, so let's go back to this the fear of the monster and connected to the desire. The monster is continually linked to forbidden practices in order to normalize and enforce. So by normalizing the strangeness of the monster, the outsider, it's a lot easier. By monsterizing them, it's a lot easier to attack them, to take what they have and say, well, no, we're doing this for justice, but it's just the mere fact of something being forbidden, of course, means we're interested in it. Here's an example. If a movie or a book gets boycotted, boy, do people want to read that book and watch that movie. So this simultaneous repulsion and attraction at the core of the monster's composition accounts greatly for its continued cultural popularity. Yeah, of course. But what's interesting, I think, in more recent times is that there's no pushback on the idea that monsters themselves can be sexy. Look at The Shape of Water. Great movie, Guillermo del Toro. He basically took the creature from the Black Lagoon, which originally came from the idea of Brazilian folklore of this river creature, and turned it into a romantic, sexy, lovey thing, which obviously a lot of monsters, like in the films, when we when we see these monsters that are stealing women, like kidnapping women or attacking women, then this is supposed to like kind of for us to see them as a double threat. They're an outsider, an alien, but they're also a sexual threat and like a rival, competition, So that makes us even madder, right? And so talking from a male paternal perspective is that, like how dare they take the women that even I'm don't have access to, those bastards. It's this kind of thing shows up, and that's why when we destroy them, we feel this great sense of justice has been served and the balance has been restored. um, that's why I think I like it when movies, because horror movies are often able to do this, is that and comics as well, of course, is that they're able to give the censors and the production company what they want and restore the status quo at the end, but they often add that question mark, the end, or there's often like enough subversiveness within that challenges the status quo that if you are the right age, if you are the right level of like the right mode, like if you're young and you don't quite like how uh you don't like the how adults like don't listen to the kids in all these movies. It's the kids always figure out what's going on first, right? And the adults never listen. So that's a kind of subversive kind of idea that the kids are the ones who are actually right and the adults are all clueless. I'm just saying you can have two generations of people watching the same movie and they will get two different messages out of it because they're coded. Uh, and that's I think that's what's interesting about horror. Horror tends to uh, be subversive in that way, even though it might be doing it completely for marketing purposes, because it's got to have the teen bucks, to come to the drive-ins. Um, so anyway, let's get back to the quotes. Through the body of the monster, fantasies of aggression, domination, and inversion are allowed safe expression in a clearly delimited and permanently liminal space. So yeah, this is the great thing about horror movies is that you can kind of act out fantasies of aggression. And of course, it's not the same as giving voice to aggression. It's like having a sandbox to play in, and you have in your little sandbox, you've got Godzilla and Rodan fighting, and you build up little buildings and they destroy them. This doesn't make you go, okay, now I want to destroy it. It's a release, so it can be that way. It can be a very positive thing. And so like if you have pent up aggression and you see the monster attacking and killing, you can actually get some enjoyment from the monster's violence, and at the same time as being horrified and wanting the victim to get away and be safe. So we are animals. We are aggressive animals, and it's in there. And so having releases for such aggression, I think can be a healthy thing. So reason number 47, why everyone should watch horror movies. So now what this mentions, and this is the interesting part, when does the monster go back from desire to fear? It says delight gives way to horror only when the monster threatens to overstep the boundaries, like when it threatens to jump out of that safe sandbox space. or to destroy or deconstruct the thin walls of culture. What a great quote. Basically, what we've talked about in earlier theses is about the boxes and all the things that we set up for labels, and everything. It's very flimsy construction, and that's why people are so threatened by difference, and that's why the monster is threatening, not just because of its danger, of its sharp claws, and its sharp teeth and fangs. It's just its existence and of being a different being. That's where most of the danger is. So something part of the desire thing that we're talking about is, if you are a marginalized person, then you can get some enjoyment from the monster because they have more freedom, they have more power. So even though they're marginalized and pushed to the outside, and they have to fight for their survival, they have more tools at their disposal. Their monstrousness means they have more tools at their disposal to um, take on the status quo, etc. And so it says, this quote is good: monsters serve as secondary bodies through which the possibilities of other genders, other sexual practices, and other social customs can be explored. So, when we're dealing with an alien presence, and it has its own way of living, its own way of life, we can see that simulated, right? Through the monster. And we can kind of use that simulation, reflect on it, and see if that offers a challenge to our own set beliefs on certain practices. Nobody came out and told me, except for one guy in 8th grade science class, came out and told me, like, the way you're thinking is wrong. You're wrong about how you look at the world. It was just a combination of a bunch of things, and comics, especially comics in the mid 80s, were a huge part of that for me, for being able to kind of step outside a little more and look on the inside. Because I was on the inside, but I had lots of questions about why things weren't going like I thought they were supposed to go. Like the world's supposed to work a certain way according to what everybody's saying. But it didn't work that way. A lot of, hypocrisy and things were going on that, and so I think early on, and I mentioned this before, I identified with these outside beings, the monster, especially like the wolfman, the werewolf, the classic wolfman, who was a lot less comfortable with his monstrousness than, let's say, Dracula, who reveled in his monstrousness. The wolfman didn't want to be that way, but was who he had become, and so he had to deal with it, right? So talking about there's another quote here, which is talking about the reinforcement of the status quo, is that the co-optation of the monster into a symbol of the desirable is often accomplished through comedy. So you often have a mix of the horror comedy thing, which where you can make fun of the monster for its difference, and so that also weakens the monster, gives you some power over it, right? And so and through many rituals in story, in movie, in comics, and in actual festival ritual, the scapegoated monster is ritually destroyed in official narratives, purging the sins of the town. And so this kind of idea of the festival as a some kind of purging, and then like a scapegoat is they do have these yearly festivals where like in Europe where there's a dragon and then the dragon has to be defeated. In Japanese stage plays, you have these stage plays often kind of cross over into a little bit of the ritual because like the Japanese kabuki theater, there are certain like rituals like the stare, like the glare into the audience with the crossed eyes. That's supposed to like scare away bad juju, bad luck, and etc. But in such things like that, yeah, a monster will appear and it'll be, you know, destroyed. And so anyway, there's so we're seeing what kind of desire are we seeing? We're seeing two kinds of desire. One is the more modern, like sexy monster. And I came across that, like I said, I think I mentioned before, way back in thesis, I want to say two. Um, why don't I just check? Yes, thesis two with the Draculas. The 1979 Frank Langella Dracula had great hair, was really cool and sexy. And so I was like, yeah, that's what I want to be. I want to be powerful and hot. So that's interesting there. That kind of desire, and also the desire of wanting the power and the freedom of the monster. That's what we mentioned in the last thesis with the border of the possible, of like what's possible for us. We're kind of limited by our physicality, limited by rules, where the monster is not. So, you know, what I have on my slide here is trying to explain a little bit about objection. You know, I've got this picture here of the person objecting something, uh, something that he considers disgusting, evil, etc., pushing it far away from him, thus helping to define who he or she is. And then also how we can never quite sever that connection. It's still a part of us because it was born from within. And then there's also the attraction of something that's different, exotic. There's curiosity there. There's a magnetism there that cannot be denied. And so, you know, part of it is this thing we pushed out from us. It's separated from us. It creates a void. And there's nothing that we want more than to fill our voids, you know. A lot of psychotherapy is built around, you know, understanding the void. One thing about Lacan that's apparently interesting is that he was more about you're not going to fill that void. So you need to know your void and just accept it. And that's how you can live a healthier life, you know, which is, I think, quite interesting. And so, yeah, the monster represents taboo, and we are into the taboo. I think that covers the topic pretty well. Um, you know, the whole thing about haunted houses, why are they so popular? Why do horror movies continue to be incredibly popular? Why can they be made so cheaply and make so much money many times? Is how it preys on our fears and our desires at the same time, you know. That's why you got to have, you know, movies for certain demographics. You know, you got to have or you have to at least make the audience think that they're going to get some of the things that interest them, titillate them, etc., as well as scare the pants off of them. So I just want to add this other point of mine, which is that if you can understand the things that disgust you, the things that you push away, that you object, if you can understand that, if you can take a clear look at it without only feeling the revulsion, like if you can get over that point where you can actually look at what repulses you, then you really will get a much clearer understanding of who you are and actually how you can grow. So, uh, why do I like horror movies, horror comics? Because I think that there's so much potential for other perspectives, because just the mere act of being a horror story means you're going to be put outside of your comfort zone, which means you're automatically going to be looking at a situation from a different angle. Um, and I think, especially texts like comics and books, can really get you inside the head of the monster, and really like give you a clear perspective of what it's like to be in another body. And I think the a lot of the problems that we have in understanding each other could be remedied if there was a lot more of learning how to step outside and look at situations from a different perspective. So, oh boy, there's the humanist part coming out. What can I do? All right, so that's thesis 6. This was a bit of a long one, but like I said, they just get it meatier as they go on. Meatier as in meat, not as in the thing that carries the blob down, and refer to another. Next time, we've got the final thesis. The monster stands at the threshold of becoming. This is also an interesting one. I'll probably have a lot to say about it. Hold on to your garters and your suspenders, people. And I do appreciate everyone who has bothered to continue with these lectures. I hope you find them interesting. We will get back to your regularly scheduled manga stuff as soon as I get this stuff also out of my system. I have put them in a separate playlist, so that if you're into this kind of thing, I will put more things under this topic. I've tried to keep my playlists pretty consistent so that you can get to the content that you like. But I did start this channel to talk about both those things, monsters and manga. And this talking about monster theory really allows me to get to the crux of what I love about monsters in comics, in manga especially. All right, guys, I'll see you later. See you in the funny papers. Bye-bye.